Brittney Griner finally freed.
Yeah, I was not expecting
Finally.
that this morning when I checked the news, but
It was
pretty
really
crazy.
great to see because it's been 10 months. She's been in a Russian penal colony, only 1 hour outside a day, sharing a room with two other cellmates, doing physical labor by all accounts. I don't know why this stuck with me, but the fact that they had to construct a new bed for her because she's 6'9". I, I guess that anecdote, you just kind of picturing her in that situation was sad for me. Of course, I mean it's just horrible to hear, and the fact that she had to deal with this because of cannabis cartridges that had trace elements of it. Not that I wouldn't care if she was her whole suitcase was filled with weed. I mean, the war on drugs is absolute insanity, and this was clearly a maneuver for the Russian government to get one up on the United States in the midst of the tensions that have existed for decades, but also connected to the United States' funding of Ukrainian efforts to resist the invasion, the Russian invasion. And so she became an unwitting pawn in international negotiations. And so much of there's so many thoughts here. One, the right wing reaction has been, oh, we got totally fleeced. I saw Dave Portnoy, the biggest douchebag in America, saying that basically. It's like, oh, are we evaluating a trade? Are we, it was, is this is this a trade for an NBA player or something? Give me a break, dude. This is her life. And what
Bad deal.
it's just, all right, like, cool it. Like,
House.
the United States sent back.
Brittney Griner for a Russian warlord. Who says no?
I mean, but he's not even okay. Look, I understand this is a bad guy who was imprisoned. Victor Boot is his name. It's spelled
Mhm.
like Bout, but it's pronounced like Boot. Um, Arms dealer, not a savory character for sure. However, what he's done, selling weapons to bad actors and terrorist groups. The United States did that in the Middle East to some of the same groups as well, as a way to fight back the Soviets at the time. We don't talk too much about that. Selling weapons to guerrilla fighters. We do that and have done that for right wing paramilitary groups. Selling weapons to both sides of a conflict. Hey, U.S. weapons manufacturers, they're all in on that, baby. These are all things that we've done. So, like, when these right wingers are saying, oh, it's the end of the world, like the big bad Thanos going back to Russia, give me a break. Give me a break.
Also, just
This now Russia will have guns and arms. They didn't before, and now the big bad comes back, and he's going to give them guns.
well, also just like I guess for me too. I think just realistically, like there was no way that a deal like this would transpire without having to give back someone in return.
Yeah, does
And
people know
there's
how diplomacy works?
it's not ideal, of course, to have any sort of like Russian warlord be back free in Russia. I understand that, but it's at the same time this has also happened with when the Taliban took prisoners, when the Iranian government takes prisoners, and then any sort of exchange usually involves that country receiving someone in return. It's of course it's not ideal, but it's also wouldn't be ideal for Brittney Griner to die in a penal colony as well as a result of not making any sort of deal to get her home.
Exactly. I mean, these are negotiations and you give concessions. That's why it's a prisoner swap, not a prisoner release. And so the
Right, we
guys,
didn't just like let him out to just like roam free in the United States or like he was it was there were contingencies upon release in the sense that we got someone who had been a full on political prisoner back for 10 months who, like I said before, I just want to be clear, like she would have died there.
yeah.
She would not, they would not, if there was no concessions made, she would not have been brought back to her family.
And I'm sorry, it's just such a facile view of the world if you believe that one guy is going to have some one guy who's not like a part of the Russian government at this point. He's been in prison for 10 years in the United States, not he's not a political leader. He doesn't have the influence you think he does. This is not Taken. There isn't like one big bad guy Russian arms dealer who you have to face down as the final boss. Apparently, he's in ailing health. I'm sure he'll just live out the rest of his life in Russia. That's what's going to happen, or somewhere else. He might be a bad guy in and be and exist as a bad guy, but that's the price you have to pay to get somebody like this released, and it was important that she get released.
And I think what's more important too is just to consider the fact that, like someone mentioned in the IMs on the show, like this should only what this should do instead of focusing on the Victor Boot aspect of it is this should return us to thinking about getting Leonard Peltier released, getting Paul Whelan, the person along with Brittney Griner who was not able to be released as a part of this swap.
Who Brittney Griner's wife was saying, let's emphasize that now, which was great.
And in the sense that he is still a political prisoner and he has not come home yet either. And also the other two things like we need to emphasize, I think, from our perspective too, that we, in conversations with me, you and Matt on and off the show, is that one, this goes to show you what other countries can learn from the war on drugs here. Mm-hmm. Matt was mentioning this to me but before the show, and I think it's such a good point, which is that she got Brittney Griner was convicted of a charge that until very recently, and still happens in some states, people in this country are put behind bars for years for having an illegal vape cartridge, for having a dime bag of weed, or getting some sort of trumped up charge that leads them to be an accessory to selling or an accessory to distribute. People are still in many states locked up for that now, and Russia, I think, and Russia either is taking cues from or took a leaf out of our book there, or they are just applying the same draconian standards we have to minor, minimum offenders as well. And the other thing is, Brittney Griner should have never had to go to Russia to supplement her income for playing professional basketball.
Yeah.
She was there because she doesn't make enough money in the WNBA to just stay in the United States and have an off season and play in the WNBA, and then also have to play in another league internationally.
Well said.
She went there because she had to make money for her family, and she wouldn't have had to if there was more resources invested into the WNBA and if they actually got fairer contracts. So there's a lot there that's, I think, just a lot more important than just the U.S. sent back a Russian warlord.
100%. Well said.